I want to, transition to, certainly the emerging technologies for cell therapy manufacturing, which is, you know, what everyone on our call is interested in. Um, and, you know, they're driving innovation in cell therapy production manufacturing. And innovation is a great word. Of course, it's what we want, but what does innovation really mean? Um, so, Rohit, if you could start us off, what emerging technologies do you see as having significant impact on the future of cell therapy from your perspective and what you're working on, and what are they?
Yeah. So, Erin, I think you touched upon some great, points there in your question, right? So, what is innovation, right? I think innovation is, not something that, let's say, resides in a lab, and we can't really benefit the patients, or it's really at the end of the day, the way I try to look at innovation is a technology or a way of solving a problem, that benefits the patients, right? So keeping the patient impact in mind, I think that's very critical. So I think what I've been focused on is manufacturing innovation, but looking at what problems can be solved, right? Within, what are the current pain points? And as we talked about the pain points, um, the tools that really, come to my mind, or what in general the cell therapy industry is looking forward to, is kind of getting more, I would say, automation involved, um, and also robotics, right? So I think that's going to play more and more, I would say, center stage role as we are manufacturing these therapies. And I think just from the personal experience, I mean, I've seen these therapies made. Um, really, these are handcrafted therapies. The way currently the operations happen, in terms of how, um, how the cell journey happens, from vein to vein. There's so many manual parts in it, and I think it's, as I said, like it's one failure mode away from not delivering for the patient. So I think by automating, I would say, a majority of that manufacturing portion is going to be very critical. And I think there is, there is a, I think we are moving forward in that direction where, some of the previous, platforms, the first generation platforms were a combination of, manual, some automated operations. Now, I think a lot of the vendors and service providers, I think they are providing platforms where you can integrate multiple operations, let's say from your isolation to activation, transduction, expansion, formulation, all on one single unit operation, right? So I think that's the step that where I see that a lot of tools out there, and equipments out there that can cater to combining a lot of operations and having these on one single unit. And it's still, it means like you're dedicating that piece of equipment for a particular patient lot. And further, right, how do you actually go to high throughput manufacturing where you're doing several of these operations in parallel, let's say in a GMP in a box sort of concept. So I think automation has a key role, a very critical role to play. I think robotics is emerging, especially combining with AI and machine learning, where you can mimic some of the human tasks and apply those to some of the key processing areas where you're manipulating the cells, or how you're handling the cells, mixing it, and really transferring the cells between the unit operations. So I think that is going to be a game changer. And I think this is a very exciting time for people, especially in the manufacturing or in the development side, to have these toolkits, so automation and robotics. And then the other piece is also advanced analytics, right? And within that includes AI as well, where you, like, I think in terms of how we look at the data, right? I think we've been doing, people have been analyzing the data on the computers, but I think looking at the data holistically from your supply chain, from your manufacturing, QC, and then also even, post infusion, right? From the patient standpoint. So connecting that data set and analyzing it in various ways, using machine learning models, I think you can get a lot of predictive insights. And I think that's going to be another game changer for, it's going to disrupt, many industries. And I think this industry is going to be one of those things where we're going to gain a lot by applying these two. So automation, robotics, advanced analytics and AI. I think those are the two I definitely feel is going to be a center stage for the next revolution in the cell therapy manufacturing.
Yeah, good, good. And I think our audience is quite happy to hear you say that, considering that due to our poll responses are letting us know that 22% of our audience cares very much about automation and robotics in terms of an emerging technology. And actually too, AI and machine learning, data analytics, all of that, which we will get into a little bit more detail as we go on. But before we do, David, I'd like to hear from your perspective too. The emerging technologies that you see having significant impact on the future of cell therapy manufacturing, and do you in fact agree with perhaps our audience here who is very concerned about automation and robotics?
So yeah, I think as Rohit said, a lot of these, the origins of most of these cell therapy processes were, a very capable scientist sitting in a tissue culture room in a biosafety cabinet producing cells, and most of the manufacturing kind of processes that sprung out of that were very much tied to the human operator in terms of scheduling, overnight incubations, that type of stuff, and whatnot. So I think, as we move to kind of truly innovate these cell therapies, it is trying to go from, standard operation of two operators, maybe a QC person, a QA person in a small room with some equipment, to making it a much more automated, high throughput area where it's more tailored to what the cells that we're working on needs, as opposed to kind of making sure that the operator is able to do their job going forward. I also think in terms of efficiencies coming out, the more efficient genome editing tools that are coming online provide more opportunities. So it's the whole industry is growing and emerging. And I think the key challenge for the smaller biotech companies are, how do you embrace all that innovation, or kind of which pieces of that innovation do you choose to invest in early on? Meaning, ideally, you would, as we said before, start your process, kind of even preclinical, with your end goal in line. If you want to bring in significant automation and robotics, just because that will make your future costs more tolerable and your throughput more sustainable, that requires a lot of upfront investment. So the question is, when in your process is the right time to invest in automation, robotics, and whatnot, and what can be done at certain different times. And then once you do roll out those changes, how do you show your product is the same, or that you haven't markedly changed your product once you've changed your production strategy, or what technology you're using. But I do also agree, kind of the emerging analytics or more advanced analytics lets you measure more kind of cell parameters real time. That's a bit of a game changer as well too, so that you can react in real time, as opposed to pulling a sample, someone doing a flow panel on it, analyzing it, and then several hours of the next day getting results from it. As we integrate and use AI and machine learning to kind of tie everything together, that should allow us to much more rapidly adapt or address issues as they arise.